Trading the foreign exchange market carries high risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Trading on margin, utilizing leverage can carry an even higher level of risk that can lead to a complete loss of investment funds. So before deciding to trade the foreign exchange market or using any of our software alert products, you should carefully and diligently consider your personal investment objectives, level of experience, and risk tolerance. There is a possibility that you could potentially sustain significant loss. You should not invest any capital or trade that you cannot afford to lose. It is your responsibility to be aware of and understand all risks associated with foreign exchange trading and to seek professional advice from an independent certified financial advisor if you have any doubts. Auvoria Prime does not exercise trading authority over your trades. You and you alone exercise discretionary trading authority over every trade.
Let's go over to forexfactory.com. Now, with forexfactory.com, this is one of the best places to go. Bookmark this if you need be. Make sure you change the week to the current week. Today is the 6th, tomorrow being the 7th, starting off markets into next week. As you can see on the calendar here, Governor Bailey is speaking. Fed Chair Powell is speaking. This looks like an economic club in New York, which is, fairly common that this is. I don't know if there's going to be any Q&A. We're always looking for that potential Q&A in these speeches. So a lot of times these notes are already known by the marketplace. But if there's Q&A showing up in any speech, sometimes it could throw a little bit of a monkey wrench into, anything, equities, currencies, bonds, whatever. But in any case, so Tom, the Q&A question from Tom is, please post a link to your notes. Tom, they're in the back office. So I do not post a link to the back office specifically because I need you guys to go in the back office and learn it, and that way you're sort of forced to do it on your own. So don't hate me. So let's go into, I think that's all the comments I want to say on Forex Factory. You guys have got the links to my market watch. Do note that, let me just make sure, I want to check one thing. Dasan has been posting his notes earlier. For those of you who are already aware of that, that may seem, I've been trying to ask all to have all their notes finished by at least at the very latest, like midday Pacific time on Saturday. That way I can get them all into the word sheet and get it up to the folks to put in the back office. That is my goal. Do note that with Variable, the developers insight calls, they had, and you could see all of this on my Market Watch channel, but they had some pretty big changes to a lot of stuff. So make sure you guys got, I haven't read through all of it. I just forwarded on the post. But I posted a couple of things, and I think a lot, especially with this whole Wall Street bets and the craziness and different markets, obviously, I think the important point of a lot of my postings recently have been to essentially try and avoid the hype, the noise, the FOMO, right? The unverified tips, the rumor mill, the pumps, the dumps, all that stuff, and just focus on strategy, process, patience, right? Education's obviously an important component. Shout out to the folks in the Forex and at Daisy Duncan that have put together that course. I highly recommend everybody go through it, focusing on long-term goals, focusing on, just really with me was always about the process. And I often will times, when people get off course, it's because usually they get caught up in the emotional side. And there are, unfortunately, in the human brain, a ridiculous amount of emotions that can be caught up and take us out of forming a process. But whether it's an elite NCAA athlete or some sort of international sports star, the vast majority of these people that have made it to the top of their list, like Ronaldo in soccer is a great example. I mean, the guy is just laser focused. I mean, unlike almost any guy I've ever seen outside of maybe Tom Brady or Tiger Woods in his day, right? As much as I hate to admit Brady, we have to give the guy kudos. So, but in any case, is that coming across okay? You guys seeing my screen okay? You seeing the Forex Factor? You hearing me okay? Looks like somebody's got a problem with some connection. A lot of times what I do, guys, is I'll just log in and log out of Zoom, which I had to do a couple times today. But in any case, that's posted on my channel. All right, let's move on to the charts. S&P, for those interested, equities, all-time high. Morgan Stanley World Index, S&P, Dow, DAX, a lot of indexes near or at their highs. Not going to get too much into that, obviously. DXY, okay. So the rumblings out of our idiots on the right and left side in DC is that we may get a stimulus, right? Gee, surprise. Okay, will it come to pass? Will they form it? When will it happen? You know, what are the components of it? How much more in debt we going to be as a country, which is sad. But I do understand that there are Americans out there and globally that do need stimulus. So I understand it. Whether we'll be able to grow ourselves out of this stimulus over the next 3 or 4 decades, God willing, I'm still on the earth, is a different story. So, but with the movements in the dollar and looking at the daily chart here, tradingview.com, taking just a zoom in here to what's been going on. Support line orange, resistance red. Sometimes these flip-flopping colors, not as important. What is important is that the strength that the dollar has shown essentially since a doji formation and a rip off of 89.50, which took place on the 6th of January. So as I've been echoing, hopefully accurately and hopefully to all subscribers, that we're expecting a little bit of a short-term trend up in the dollar to probably ultimately end in tears for the longs as we break down through the lows. I don't know when it's going to happen. I have no idea how far it's going to stretch. All you can do is just look at the technical analysis of the here and now and know that we've been trending up, which is a pretty decent amount of time. In the long-term downtrend of the dollar, we're looking at almost perfectly a month as of today that ended with a nice reversal at the end of last week. So we pulled back almost 50 cents on that. My assumption is maybe we spend more time in here. I don't know how far. A lot of times you'll have a pullback like this, and then it'll rip it right up past it, right? But as I've been looking, and I've switched some of the colors around here, if you're noticing the colors kind of changed, but so that's kind of my feel for where the dollar is. You know, feel free in the Q&A window to ask any of the questions about what you're looking for as far as dollar. But I think that it's important to understand its direction and potential movements first. And, you know, and essentially we can begin to do the analysis going forward thereof. All right. Here's the longer term chart. I think it's also important to look at the weeklies on this. Reset the scale. So been trending down since our rip all the way up through 102, basically dropped the full $10, and then we've rallied approximately $1.50. That's kind of where we are long term. Do note, looking at the monthly chart on the dollar, you know, this area is pretty solid. I mean, we went down and, you know, ideally not hit quite into the low 89 level that I'm looking at here on the monthly chart. It's taken us all the way back essentially to support in the 88, 75-ish area all the way to 89. No surprise for those looking at longer term charts why we've bounced. So oftentimes when I get questions surrounding why did something do something, if the person asked it is technically analysis challenge, new word, right? That's okay. But ideally, you always want to go back and look further back. It's not tough to begin to see where these places are that the dollar essentially just absolutely what they call zippered through this area up into a new range, obviously, of the last 5 years. But this is a big area that, you know, somebody was out there defending it, at least for now, right? They defended it in the beginnings of 18. Obviously, we had an equity correction at this point as well. And now they're defending it for now. at the same level. So somebody out there can't tell you who it is, what the size of them or the group or, whatever. Who knows? Maybe it's the Wall Street Bets guys supporting it down here. I don't know. But in my Telegram channel, I posted within, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, the components of DXY. So if you want to go in and read a little more about it or sort of its background, all that fun stuff, jump on the T channel. Euro USD. So this is the monthly chart. Okay. So no surprise, we're going to see some resistance here, just like we saw a complete opposite of almost an inside out chart of the DXY, right on the opposite side. So we're seeing some resistance up here we're coming up against. Let's take a look at weekly. Not as much to see, but moving to the daily, obviously, it's just an inverse of what we're looking at. DXY support now right in the 1960-ish area. Probably go back up. I have no idea if we're going to hit this high again. Obviously, that would mean that we're going to be hitting the low in the dollar. I do think we need to spend some more time balancing in here. You can see how long we spent. And it was like the 3rd of August, right? No. Ideally, the 27th of July till approximately the 25th of November, though we were balancing inside of a particular range. So a lot of times people look at time-based. This is where the time-based volume profiles really come into play that I'm looking to at some point overlay. I think what I may do is have my, the problem is my trading systems are on another tower, and they're really nuts about giving out tons of licenses from Linsoft's IRT. So I was thinking about just setting it up. I almost wish with Zoom could let me jump over to another computer so I could actually show you my futures trading systems at some point, because we can derive some analysis from the time and volume-based profiles that I use in IRT. In any case, broke out. Here we are. Probably spend some more time balancing in this group. Now, daily chart again, GBP, cable against the dollar. We're back up against this point here. Really come up to this line a lot. The more we come up to some point or down to some point in support, more there's a chance to break through it. And there's also more the possibility that you keep coming up against it, that it doesn't work, and then we travel all the way back down. I don't see that happening because I think the dollar may rally a little more, but we may have a little bit of a breakout in cable, even though the dollar may not be dropping back down to its low. So it's possible this could move on its own outside of, I don't know, typically when I see this type of chart, one thing you want to envision is that, and I really don't bring out the drawing tools much. Maybe I should bring out the drawing tools more, right? But just imagine yourself right in here as like pockets of stops, right? So typically high frequency systems, and maybe this is a little more prevalent in the futures or equity markets, they're always looking for pockets of stops. There's actually many numerous algos out there that are called stop hunters, and essentially they're just lurking through the markets looking for pockets of stops that they can bring in huge orders, rip it up into this. It's always a good trade, but it's difficult from the standpoint of a manual trader. I just want you guys to envision kind of where the stops would be up in a given area, and then maybe we may go for a pocket. I do think that would require the dollar to drop a little bit more than just balancing, but who knows? I could be wrong. That's kind of the view on GBP. Let's take a look at GBP, JPY. Now we've broken out here. So you want to look back to where we were in March, see this very decent amount of resistance in this area. And obviously this was pandemic related, but we're holding so far. Let's take a look at the weekly chart, see if we can see the same thing. So for now, holding here looks like 144.775 area. This will be the next stop, 48.50 area. Euro JPY, let's go back to daily. We got some more time to spend in here, but there's a lot of factors in play, and most of that is the dollar's relation to each of these currencies first before I move to this type of chart. Euro GBP now. Looking on the daily chart here. Let's take a look at a weekly after this. Pretty big area of support you can see right in this area, Poked their head and the candle down. Notice the little wick popped through the bottom. Came right back up and held support. Does that mean it's going to crash back down through it? I don't know. A lot of this is obviously dollar-related stuff. You guys are probably sick of hearing me saying it, but it really is about pin action. Recently being the last, year in currencies as to levels of underlying debt and or devaluations of U.S. currency that's sort of leading these others around. Euro AUD. I don't think I have that on the list. Let's take a look at that. All right, so let me just start off with a weekly chart on this. We're really holding the edge of the cliff here, guys. Held it the last couple of weeks, but boom, right back down against this again. So let's drop to the daily. So the edge of the cliff on this is basically 5,600. Anything underneath that, it could be what's that great sound effect of the train going off the cliff you always hear? I miss my soundboard. I actually used to have a soundboard on this thing where we have different trades. Would do good. We hit the soundboard like Kramer does. It was great. Yeah, it's pretty much let me just look at the monthly real quick on this. I guess ultimately we're more than likely going to have a test of almost perfectly the 5,400 area right here. That would be my guess. When, if, how long, duration there, I don't know. Let's put this up here with the currencies, though. I get asked a question about a lot of this, so I should probably keep this one up here. And let's code it. Gold. NZD. Get some requests for this. Go back to the daily. Reset the scale. And NZD USD. Here we go. So this thing's just going to keep going up. Actually, you know what? Here's a good question for you guys. So I bought this really good Rode mic, which is more of a portable mic. I think I'm going to get like one of those boom-based ones, sort of like more studio. But can you guys actually hear my neighbor's blower across the street or no? Or can you just hear my voice? Just be curious. All right, Rode doing its job. No. Yeah, you guys hear it? You hear the blower? Okay. It's funny. I guess it isn't that noise canceling, is it then? All right. Let's see. USD. Got to take a look at Swissy, obviously, here. Let's see what's going on. Notice the same rejection that we saw. US dollar, obviously, no surprise. So we came up to resistance. Notice how good these lines work, right? Not all the time, but when you've, moved from a particular point, like, let's say you're breaking out, we're going down into this area now. We've begun to sort of build another range-based trade. These lines have been pretty decent. I got to really hand it to Desan. These are more of dynamic support and resistance lines, and they change colors. And I'm not as concerned about that as just, whether or not we're holding the lines or we're looking to move up, essentially above those. Bitcoin. Back up. Dogecoin. I have a friend His kid put like $1,600 into this thing on some ridiculous, probably post, and there's no value to this, but things gone up like a bunch on the kids. Like turned like, I think it was like $1,600 into 20 grand. So we told him to sell at the top. So hopefully he did. Kind of fun though, right? Let's see. I covered GBP NZD. Did I cover this yet? Let's take a look at this. Still in this range. It's been holding quite well. As the take a look at the weekly on this. It's almost the same range as the daily, right? Yeah, I would say based upon what goes on in relation to GBP USD, probably could have. No. Probably would bet this is probably going to head back down towards 8,600. But you always can be wrong. NAS. Take a look at the NAS real quick. So for many of you who don't probably care a rat's ass about this, the NASDAQ composites, where all the big tech stocks globally lie. This is where we are on daily. You can see we are overdue for corrections, getting quite bubblicious here. And then obviously when you're done looking at that, you always want to look at the Qs next. Notice it's a very similar chart, but this is an actual ETF that we can overlay a volume profile on. But if I was to go back through this whole period of time, we'd probably have the point of control somewhere around probably 250, I would estimate. Let's see what else. AUD CAD, back to daily. Notice it's all kind of the same thing. We're just stuck in a range, so forth. So do make sure you guys, if you have the time, is to listen to all the developers' calls. I know that we're having everything sort of get on board a little bit more, but I'm actually probably on Monday, if I can, I'm going to try and jump into the Arrow trading room with Nathan, seeing what's going on there. I did make a suggestion to Dasan based upon the question that somebody asked me last time, which I've heard probably about 10 or 15 times now. He's going to look at, I can't guarantee he's going to do it, but he's going to look at setting up a variable chat for everybody to join from a Telegram standpoint. So keep your fingers crossed that that's something that he wants to do. I'm not pushing him one way or the other. But if I was him, I would just set very strict rules, because there is a lot of chat and picture posting and videos and stuff that, hey, it's great. But there's just way too much rah-rah, not enough strategy going on in the Arrow room. I wouldn't have the time to scan through all that stuff. Maybe set some rules. But Arrow's doing well, guys. I really would check it out. All right, what else we got? Let me just... point of control is just a term for like a center point, if you will. I don't have it hooked up here, but I guess I could turn it on. Yeah, it actually looks like I took it off the chart. But you can go in, if you guys have TradingView, and just go into indicators and just type in mark or a volume profile and add a cumulative volume profile, or add some of these volume profile levels if you want to the chart. And that'll help you understand where it is. Or just, I always just recommend Googling volume, or market profile Peter Stettlemyer, or just market profile. You'll see how Stettlemyer was a member of the Chicago Board Options back in the 80s, and he essentially developed this, which is to this day an amalgamation of a lot of things, but essentially it's just putting volume together on a bell curve, essentially having it as not a horizontal technical analysis indicator, but a vertical one that I've shown on this. It's exceptionally effective in analyzing everything. Problem with using that to analyze currencies, albeit it probably sounds like I just continue to whine about this, but I just don't trust the volume coming in right off of 14 banks of aggregated trade in Forex. Whereas if I'm showing you something like the NASDAQ, or actually, let me just go back to the Qs as an example. the Qs. This is exceptionally accurate volume because this ETF is executed primarily on the NASDAQ, which is a centralized exchange. So it's where you can have one trade, and there's other places this is executed, but for the most part, the volume coming from the trading of this particular ETF stands for exchange traded fund. It's just like an actively traded mutual fund, if you will, is the NASDAQ National Market System, the NMS. So it is accurate volume. So it's very easy to put this in the aggregate on a market profile chart, and you'll just see sort of bell curves develop. But it has a value area high that gets set, which is 70% of the value area low, point of control, which is the center point. And then that changes over a period of time. So if you've ever Googled my name or watched any of the different presentations that I've put on, sort of the old days, as my kids like to call it, you'll see most of the analysis I did in teachings with different software companies and brokerage firms was all based on volume profile stuff. It's what I'm known most for out there, which is difficult to do on Forex charts. And I try to stay, real basic in terms of technical analysis, because all I have on this particular chart is moving averages, support and resistance, the yellow and orange lines, and then the volume obviously down at the bottom. So along with these moving averages. So at some point, I'm probably going to overlay when I'm like the structure of some of the Pine script that's been written for this, which I really don't at this point. But maybe I could take some pictures of my other screens, maybe throw some Forex in there. The problem is the data I have coming in for the trading system for volume is not, I don't have any Forex data coming in. It's all futures markets data. So, and that will lose a lot of people, and I don't want to do that. So, so the question I have, point of control, we got that answered. Do you recommend a really good order book data on futures and currencies? So the best data out there is there's a number of places, there's a group, but CQG, okay, these guys have the best data for the futures. They also supply most of their data to the trading platforms for the futures markets of big brokers. So like Dorman, RJ O'Brien, Interactive Brokers, a lot of other places, Gain Capital, which is big in execution. The guys I use, though, are DTN IQ Feed. So DTN is who I use. These guys are actually pretty affordable. You can go through some of the fees. It's actually not that bad. You just choose a non-professional designation because you're a retail trader. But I pay DTN about $60 a month for data. It's primarily on the CME, as you guys can see here. I don't want to get everybody sort of off track on that, but that's just the data that I choose to use. A lot of the stuff that's used for much of the stuff that the quant and the back testing that a lot of the developers using, including Dasan and Tyler, it's coming from different data providers than what I'm showing. So this isn't primarily a currency data provider. It's mostly just for the futures markets. So I don't want to confuse you guys on that. But I'll tell you, if you guys have any questions on data, I just sort of rely on the developers to find the best data. These guys are better than I, obviously, in that arena. So if you guys want to know specifically what data those guys are using to back test, because I'll tell you, been most impressed, and I haven't been exposed as much. And, there isn't as much back testing with Nathan's and Arrow, but I've been most impressed with Dasan's ability to bring in tons of really clean data and do just a mass load of back testing on that. I have tons of charts on all of that. Let me see if I can find something. It's getting a bit of a deeper dive here, but we have a whole portfolio here that you guys can see of different types of Monte Carlo simulations. I can show some more of this at some point, but the point I'm trying to really derive here is that in the constant quest to update and make software better, you want to get closer to high 60s, low 70s win rates, which most of this shows is attained. Yeah, so and I get a chance to watch his developer yesterday. If you guys are saying he showed that, that's cool. Good deal. All right. Any other questions on anything? Let me just peel through these here. Yeah. So yeah, that's actually a good point that Mariska just posted. Jason shared yesterday. He doesn't use MT4 data. I don't know, honestly. Look, MT4 is the 800-pound gorilla on the block. They're a Russian company, unfortunately. And I just think there's other places to buy data from, but I just don't know the answers to who'd be the best in the future space. It's DTN and CQG. All right, what else? So Nathan trades again from Wednesday to Friday, 7 a.m. GMT time. I forget what the hell the conversion that is to Pacific time. So, or Eastern time for that matter. I think it's a 6-hour lag, if I'm not mistaken. So from New York to GMT, but join the Telegram groups. What else? Hey, it looks like somebody posted some cool stuff in the Arrow chat room. Look at my ugly face there in the corner. How cute, huh? I should turn the damn cameras off, right? Let me just make sure I've gone through everything I wanted to talk about. Yeah, there you go, guys. 8 a.m. Central European, 7 a.m. UK. Guys are perfect, man. That's like the sweet spot of Forex trading, which is about 3 a.m. New York time to about 10 a.m. New York. That's why it's tough for me out here on the West Coast, because I'm like on the edge. Here's a good question. I like this. Hey, Thomas, you've been asking some good questions, brother. Yeah. Wish we could give you like a smiley face, dude, right? But for the novice, how would you recommend comparing the various EA products? So first, I would Google martingale. Okay. That's the first thing I would do. You don't need some deep dive on it, but just understand what type of trading system it is. Do know that most of them are based on martingale, which is really just a cost averaging type of analysis, albeit some have components like variable in it that will allow it to be more of a trend following system. You first want to understand what the structure is of how it's going to trade. Then next, you want to understand, obviously, what are the win rates. These win rates hopefully are based on a lot of trades, right? And they're real trades, or at least quality data in terms of back testing. Those are the two sort of starting points, if you will. I always want to know, how frequency it trades. And then obviously, get your hands on, I cannot give it to you, but get your hands on a risk management spreadsheet, where it has the lot sizes. I know a lot of developers have shared these, understand the lot size and the risk associated with it. And then first and foremost, which everybody should be able to echo right now, don't trade with capital you can't afford to lose, period. That's the bottom line. But once you understand all those systems, irrespective of what they do, from a diversification standpoint, to sort of be putting my financial advisor hat on, right? You always want to have diversification, right? I can tell you guys, if you spend any time, you see I got this Wall Street Bets tab right here on the screen, right? Let me share. I'm sharing the right screen because I just love reading the absolute lack of, am I sharing? Yeah, there we go. The absolute lack of risk management that has gone on inside this group. It is just bananas. I mean, I routinely, through these just ridiculous amount of posts, have seen people putting $1 million into GameStop at $350 a share. Think about that. Now, maybe that's a small account for this particular person. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it's all fake news shit they're posting. I have no idea. But taking a look at GameStop last week, look how this thing has just been absolutely clobbered. And to see the carnage, you really got to move down to about a 4-hour chart. So look at that price range. There were people buying up here in just huge chunks thinking it was going to go higher. They've been crushed, right? Don't be this person. I don't care how good it is or as rich as you may be. I would never do anything like that. I would have maybe put 10 grand into this if I had $1 million portfolio. And if it went poof, screwing around with this crap or in some kind of Dogecoin trade, that's it. That would be the extent of it. It's like 1% of a portfolio would I game on something like this. Nothing more. Because I get asked this question a lot, Ed, would you done all? No, not at all. And I post this a lot on my Twitter channel, which is really just me. Here, I'll show you guys. By the way, all these marijuana stocks have been taken off too big time. It's crazy. If you go home, follow me on Twitter. I don't care whether you do or you don't. I mostly just post stuff that's related to markets. Anytime I see something good, right? Like this is the one I posted on, was it today? Yeah, I just retweeted this today. Julian Biddle's actually a really smart guy. He runs a hedge fund over in Europe. Very, very, like a number of the big hedge fund guys I follow. He is very generous with his time, and he really doesn't need to do any of this. These are the types of people that add real value to any kind of financial media platform, in my opinion. Someone that is wealthy enough that to not care about educating the public, but takes the time to show stuff like this. These are the kinds of people, that should get the kudos on this and not all the other noise. But this was a big one. So the export orders, China new export orders last month, take a big dive, which is usually a heads up for what's going on as far as the U.S. Notice how well these things track. It's almost perfectly correlated in terms of this. It's just a line-based chart. But the point is it took a dive. So does that mean our ISM manufacturing index is going to take a dive? All the stimulus that's going on, the lockdowns are going to begin to take effect, which is my suspicion. And with that, more than likely would go the rise of the US dollar and the decline of equities. So just stay tuned on that one. All right, that's pretty much all I have. Let's see, we can have in a second. Yes, you can do that in variable. Ideally, I would want to have 4 licenses. Look, I get it. It's a lot of money. Go find a whole bunch of people and then it'll all be free, right? But ideally, you want to have at least 2 to 3 licenses going into that. And do keep in mind, I don't know if you guys been following some of these FX books? I don't really have any time to open them up today, but have you guys following any of these FX books of the different developers out there? Because they're all looking good the last, since last October, right? These are all done really well. So, we're seeing win rates on most of the stuff if it's set up correctly in terms of the settings, seeing win rates, essentially in the, high 60s plus, which is really good. And that's the key, just keep the risk at a minimum, trade with capital. You can afford to lose. All right. That's that question. What else? All right, cool. All right, everybody. Enjoy the weekend. For those drinkers out there, drink heavily. I plan to on the golf course. I wish everybody a good week. Drive and be safe. Take care of everybody. And let your hearts not be troubled. Hopefully we'll get past all this crap. And may the trades be with you guys.